okay, I was gonna brag. I was like, I know everything about every book that I've ever read. Hey, hi, hello, how are you? I'm Pia. Today I'm going to be tier ranking all of my 5-star reads. Now, I have a lot of 5-star reads. Let's be honest, I have been reading like 100 books a year for quite a few years now. So I've read a lot of books, I've loved a lot of books. This is a deep dive into what I've loved. I don't know if I stand by these decisions, I don't know. But we're gonna hit up our tier ranker. So we have our categories. We have 6 stars at the top, which is like best of the best. Then slightly below that, we have it's a classic love. Things that are either like actual classics, which I didn't put a lot in here because I just don't read a lot of classics, or like it just feels like a classic in my heart. And then like the middle of the road, middle tier is solid. Like I believe it's 5 stars. Like it's up there. And then below that is more like 4 stars, like upon reflection. It's not actually that good. And then lastly is a product of its time. You know, I read some books when I was young and I was like, this is the best book I've ever read in the world. And since then I've read a lot more books. So let's now take a look at what we've got going on here. First book here is A Heart in the Body of the World, which is one of my favorite books. I read this in 2021 and it means a lot to me. So I'm gonna have to say, oh, I love it. I haven't reread it, so I don't know if I trust me. So I'm gonna put it in solid. I'm gonna put it in solid. Can I move it? Hello? Okay. Okay, and then next is A Room of One's Own, which I recently read. It's by Virginia Woolf. It's like a kind of auto-fiction, slightly non-fictional story, and I think it's a classic. It's really good if you want to just hear Virginia Woolf talk about being a woman and being a writer and living as a woman in your life. And then we have Ace. Ace is 6 stars. Ace is such a good book. It is a non-fiction book about asexuality and just how like asexuality operates in the context of an allocentric world, and it's just really interesting. I'm asexual, so I really loved it, but I just think it's like a great book for anyone to read, especially if you don't know anything about asexuality. Then we have All Adults here, and I remember really enjoying this book. I think I read it last year. I think we're gonna go solid. I think it's solid. Oh, then we have All the Bright Places. Now, my most popular video on my channel is me reviewing All the Bright Places when I was 16, I think. And I stand by that book because of what it meant to me at the time. That was the first book that I read with bipolar representation, and as a bipolar person, you typically don't get diagnosed until you're 18, so I didn't know I was living with bipolar, and I just saw a lot of myself in that book and in that story, and it just really resonated with me. So I really love it. It's going in 6 stars. It is just like, it's so special to me, and I will literally like accept no criticism on that book. I'm sorry, like it means the world to me. Then we have All the Young Dudes. All the Young Dudes is 6 stars. I'm sorry, like All the Young Dudes is so good. And for a lot of these I have like the first book in the series, unless I like specify otherwise that like this third book is like the best. But there's a lot of like 5-star series I have. All the Young Dudes is a 5-star series. It's so good. I have a whole reading vlog reading it, and every morning the way home gets longer and longer. It's a classic. I think that's a classic. I think that should be read more widely. I think that's such a good book. Then we have Anne of Avonlea, which is just representative of all the Anne books, except the ones I haven't read. Whoops. But except like the last one I read, they were all 5 stars. So I'm gonna say classic. Oh, then we have As Good as Dead. So this is a different case where I did not give every book in this series 5 stars, but I did give the third book in this series, As Good as Dead, 5 stars. And I just think this book is so unhinged and so crazy. And I loved every second of it. I was eating it up. I'm gonna say 6 stars. It really impressed me. It wowed me. Then we have Beach Read. And now Beach Read is something like I have no desire to reread Beach Read. And I remember really liking it at the time, but I really think it's more like 4 stars. Like, I don't know. It's just not, it's not special enough to me to be a 5-star. And like, I know it's some people's favorite, but it's just really not mine. And I have nothing against it. It's just, I don't think about it that much. So then we have Beartown, and now Beartown is like one of my favorite books of all time. So we've got to put that in 6 stars. That's amazing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Then we have Beautiful World by Are You. This is, and funny enough, the first Sally Rooney. I've given every Sally Rooney book 5 stars. Do they deserve it? I don't know. I don't know. I've given every Sally Rooney book 5 stars. This one, I feel like I was pressured into giving it 5 stars. I don't know if I remember enjoying it as much as I enjoyed the other 2 Sally Rooney books that I've read. So I'm gonna say more like 4 stars. I don't remember it. I've tried to reread it in the past, but I don't own it, so I feel like I need to like reread and annotate it for it to be a worthwhile experience. Then we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I read again recently. I think I read this last year. I think I have some like 4.5 stars in here. I am not that organized. Okay, this one I think is solid. I think it's solid. Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I love Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I love Cleopatra Frankenstein. It's so great. I love it. Like I was gonna be like, it's so fucked up, it's so good. Like I love this type of like drama, like just between people and like just these interpersonal relationships and stuff, and I just really loved it when I read it. I cannot wait for Blue Sisters. Holy crap, cannot wait for their next book. Okay, then we have Daughter of Smoke and Bone. This is a product of its time. I love Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I read it before I read Strange the Dreamer, and it just like captivated me. It's so magical. It's such a wonderful little love story, and I really loved Lady Taylor's writing style. I think I could read this again and enjoy it for the nostalgia, but I don't think I would like critically be like, this is the best piece of work I've ever read in my life. So then we have Dear Sweet Pea, and now this is just a sweet book. I actually was just talking about this in a job application I just wrote because I love this book. This book is so solid. I'm putting in solid because solid. It's so good. It's like this, it's a middle grade about this girl who like takes over her town's newspaper of like the Dear Abby column, and she like uses it to like mess with her life, and it's so fun, and I just really like it. It's by Julie Murphy. Eliza and Her Monsters, I have no recollection of reading this book. It's so bad because I know I put off reading it for a really long time, and then I genuinely just don't remember what it's about. I don't remember what happens. So I'm gonna have to go like more like 4. I can't remember it. I can't remember it. I know I liked it. I know I liked it a lot, but I don't remember it. And then we have Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined. I really liked this book. I remember really enjoying this book when I read it. I think it's solid. I'm sorry, I'm going fast because there are just so many books. Then we have Forever Interrupted. Now, I read this book when I was going through a time in my life. Oh my gosh, was I going through a time? I was going through a time in my life, and I remember sobbing. The crying has commenced. Sobbing reading this book. I think it's in a reading blog somewhere. I don't know. I don't know what's online, and I don't know what's not. I remember being so impacted by this book. However, at present Pia, right now, could not tell you what this book is about. I could not tell you. I think it's about, is this the one where like, see, I don't remember if like I've read the Taylor Jenkins Reid book where like she gets married and then her husband dies, or like her fiance dies, and then she like finds love again. I don't know if that's the book. That might be this book, but I don't know. I'm going with product of its time. I think I was going through something. I don't know. Then we have Funny Story. Funny Story I think is a classic rom-com. I think it's really good. I just read it. Like I have some like recent reads in here that I gave 5 stars, and like I just think it's good. I think it's a classic rom-com. Death in Her Hands is 6 stars. This book is so good. It's exactly my type of weird, like rambling, meandering shit that I love. In the Dream House is also a classic, I feel. I read In the Dream House for a class, and I think that it should be taught in classes. Like I think it's such a great story. It is so like interestingly written as well. The way it takes on different forms. And what else do I have to say about it? It's really freaking sad and impactful. So I really like it. Now, I did throw in my favorite books from my teenagehood, from my adolescence. And It's Kind of a Funny Story is one of those. And I just don't know like how I would feel about rereading this book. I read this book when I was in Italy in 2015, and I was 12. Yeah, I was 12. I wasn't 13 yet. I just was a girl, you know? I just was a girl, and I really liked this book. I brought 4 books with me on that trip. Can I name all of them? Ready? It's Kind of a Funny Story, Looking for Alaska, Autumn Falls by Bella Thorne, and so funny, and Girl Online by Zoe Sugg. So that's what I was reading in 7th grade. Fun fact. It's Kind of a Funny Story, I'm gonna say, is a product of its time. It still means a lot to me. I still really enjoy that story. Ned Vizzini, I think, was a great author and deserves a lot more recognition for what he did in his time. And yeah, but I don't think I'll reread it unless it's for a video or something. Disorientation, I think, is solid. Solid book. So good. My favorite book of last year. It is such an interesting story. It's kind of did what I wanted Yellowface to do, and it just explores so many different things about academia and the racism within academia, and it also kind of like goes off the walls a little bit, which is always something I enjoy. Then we have Divergent. Now we know I reread Divergent recently, so this is a recent 5-star. What do I have to say for myself in my 5-star of Divergent in 2023? What do I have to say about that? I think it's solid. I think it's a solid dystopian. Like, I think it does what you want it to do, leans into all the tropes that you expect, and I think it's solid. I think it's a solid book. Like, if you want like a fun time, like this literally like made me become a reader, so I credit it for a lot, so it's good. Just Kids is a classic. Patti Smith, Oh, she can do no wrong. I love her so much. Little Women is literally a classic, so it's like one of my favorite classics. Then I've read a lot of memoirs, and I've given a lot of memoirs 5 stars, and I just like don't know how to accurately rate a memoir. So I'm gonna put this in more like a 4. This is Mean Baby by Selma Blair. I thought it was a great memoir, really well done. The audiobook was really well narrated, but like it's a memoir. Like didn't change my life. I don't know. I feel like the lighting is going in and out. I think it's because it's cloudy outside. But anyway, then we have Paper Towns. I feel like this is a product of its time. I read it in my senior year of high school, so it really was really impactful on me at that time. And I recently watched the movie as a senior in college, which also made me really upset. So I think I just have like leaned into not even nostalgia, but like the time period that you really should read these books, being the same age of the characters are going through similar things as the characters. So it just really worked for me at the time, but I don't think it's the best thing ever written. We have Solitaire. Solitaire is solid. No, it's so good. Wait, what is it? Solitaire is like if you read my high school diary. Like Solitaire is like if you just opened me up and put me in a book. I don't know what I would rate that. What would I rate that? I don't know. It really shouldn't work for as many people as it does, which is kind of scary. What does that say about our society? I think it is a classic. I'm gonna say it's a classic. I think it should be read more as like a Catcher in the Rye. Like it's been compared to Catcher in the Rye, and I think it's warranted. Planning Perfect is solid. Listen, I love a YA rom-com. I write YA rom-coms. I think that they are such a bundle of joy in this sad ass universe. Like I just think that they provide so much hope and light in this world, and Planning Perfect is an amazing example of that. So I really love that book. Then we have Conversations with Friends. It's a classic. Conversations with Friends is a classic. I wish I could study Sally Rooney in school. Like this book in particular, so interesting. Like the dynamics going on between this like quadruple relationship, this like love square, so fascinating. Then we have Tender Buttons, which is a classic. Tender Buttons is a collection of poetry by Gertrude Stein. Classic girl, love her, love her. But I'm not a big poetry person, which is why there's like I think 2 poetry collections on this list. I got rid of Milk and Honey, so don't worry about that. I don't think I gave Milk and Honey 5 stars because I think I read it after I realized it was bad. Anyway, but I don't read a lot of poetry, so it's really hard for me to like break into that. But Tender Buttons is so like strange and like what you make of it. It's unlike any poetry I've ever read, and I really enjoy it. Then we have Tender as the Flesh, which I historically did not give 5 stars when I reviewed it in my best books of whatever year I read it, but I'm putting it on this list because I believe it is a 5-star because I have not stopped thinking about this book since I read it, and it's been years. So I'm gonna go 6 stars. I think it's a really great horror book. It's exactly the type of horror that I love. This just like acceptance of absurdity, and it's just all like very strange, but like everyone's acting like it's normal, and it is normal for everyone, so I really enjoyed that. Heartstopper is 6 stars. This is for the entire Heartstopper series. Did I say that right? I historically did not really enjoy the 3rd volume, but I've come around to it. And also the 5th volume I didn't love that much. Mame, I recently read. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. Correct me if I'm wrong. I literally just read it, so I could tell you what it's about. I think it's a classic. I think it's really good. I think it's like exactly the type of fiction that I want to be reading right now. I think it really represents like not what I'm moving towards with reading, because like I can see the scope of all the things that I've given 5 stars, which is so many different genres and age categories and everything. But it is something that I'm getting more interested in, which is like the 20-something figuring your life out literary fiction. My Year of Rest and Relaxation, again, I think is a feat. I think Death in Her Hands is a feat. Do I think My Year of Rest and Relaxation is a feat? No, I think it's a classic. I think My Year of Rest and Relaxation is going to be a classic of our time. Like I think it's a modern classic. Night of Cake and Puppets is again like one of these like little like pockets of joy that I have found in my life, and I love rereading it. It's in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. It just brings me immense amounts of joy, and I reread it every year. I love it so much. Far From the Tree, I don't remember this book. I remember the general plot, but I read it like like in 2017. I don't know. Like I don't know. Chlorine is 6 stars. This is a great book. Actually, is it? No. I think it's solid. Chlorine is solid. I'm having such trouble. Like I'm so indecisive. It's solid. I think it's a really great book. It's a great debut. So weird and absurd and gross and gruesome, but also just like really heartfelt. Then we have Serious Moonlight. Now I was a big, what is this author's name? I was a big fan of Jen Bennett back in the day, back in my high school days when I was reading a lot of YA romances, and I still enjoy YA romance. all the time. I remember really enjoying it, but I think it's a product of its time. I don't think it's like as good as I remember it being. Girl Made of Stars is so good. So good. So good. Exactly what I want in like a hard-hitting YA contemporary. Stargirl is a classic. I believe it's a classic. I love Stargirl. It is, what can I compare it to? It's like the modern day Anne of Green Gables. Would I say that? Yeah, it's Anne of Green Gables for the modern day, and I think it's so good, so good. And then we have Jeanette McCurdy's memoir. Again, I just like, I don't know what I would rate this. I don't know. I would say it's more like 4 stars. I just think I should stop rating memoirs. I do try to rate like the construction of the memoir. I think this memoir was told really well. Actually, we'll move it to solid. Let's move it to solid. The way this was written was really well, and I did remember being impressed by that. I've convinced myself. Okay, Grown is so good. Grown Again is so solid. I'm gonna put it in solid. Very good book. It's inspired by the R. Kelly incidents, that whole shit, and it's YA again. And it's just bonkers. It's really good. Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered is the podcast My Favorite Murders like joint memoir book. This is a product of its time. I don't know why I gave this 5 stars. I don't remember it being very good. Like I do love that podcast. I stand by it. Like I think it's a really great podcast. I love the hosts. I've been listening to it clearly for years, but is it like, did it change my life? Is it like 5 stars? No. Okay, problematic as it is, I love Call Me By Your Name. Again, I read it at a time in my life when I needed a love story, and it's problematic. I'm acknowledging it, so I'm gonna put it in the product of its time. I just think it will always be special to me. Especially the movie. Ugh. Then we have Chain of Gold. Chain of Gold is solid. That's a really great start to a series. Clockwork Angel, I think, is more like 4 stars. I think I recently tried to reread that, and I was like, this is not as good as I thought it was. And then we have Anxious People. Anxious People is 6 stars. This is like not my favorite Frederick Bachman. Beartown is my favorite Frederick Bachman, but Anxious People is like neck and neck. Then we have Becoming. Again, I just like don't know what to do with a memoir. I think it was well written. I think it's solid. I love Michelle Obama. You will never catch me saying a bad thing about Michelle Obama. Then we have Normal People, which is 6 stars, of course, because Normal People is one of my favorite books in the entire world. I'm sorry, I'm one of those girls, and I just like can't stop. People Leave Me on Vacation is similarly 6 stars. I will accept no criticism on it. It is just my favorite Emily Henry, and I don't care if you don't like it. Like, I genuinely don't care. I've reread it a couple of times, and it still is just so wonderful to me. I love it. Do I love it more than Funny Story? Maybe. Funny You Should Ask is a product of its time. I was thinking about this book today, literally today, because I just watched Philadelphia Story, and this is like a Chris Evans fan fiction, which like it's crazy that it actually happened. Like there was this interview, like if you don't know the whole story of Funny You Should Ask, did I call it Funny Story? I don't know. They're all called Funny something. Funny You Should Ask is like based on this interviewer who had this like whole weekend with Chris Evans, and it's like real, happened. You could look it up, and they like kind of like, were they in love? Like, so it's based on that. So it's kind of Chris Evans fan fiction. And then it's like 10 years later or something, and like they're meeting up again, and he's in a remake of the Philadelphia Story. And I just recently watched the Philadelphia Story for the first time, and now I'm like, this book was not that good. Firefly Lane, I think, is a classic. It is, I guess, my favorite Kristen Hanna. Although, I don't know. I think it's a great story about friendship. I think it's really well done. I think both of these books, 7% of Our Devereaux and She Drives Me Crazy, are solid. I want them to be turned into movies ASAP. I think they would be beautiful Netflix movies. I would think they would be so fun. I feel like the YA rom-coms are eating recently, and like the movies need to catch up. Like, I haven't seen a good YA rom-com movie that wasn't like Bottoms or something, like something crazy like that. That was just like a classic rom-com in a while. So Starry Eyes, Starry Eyes is a product of its time. I'm sorry, I need to reread it. I don't know. It was like my top favorite book for a long time, and if you've been around that long, you're a real one. But like, it was so like ingrained in me that like it's almost become tainted because of the period of time that I read it, and I just can't do it anymore. I think Daisy Jones and the Six is also similarly a product of its time. I just don't think it was that good. Like, let me defend myself for a second. I think Daisy Jones and the Six is a great book, but like, is it a book? Or like, was it a vehicle to make a show? You know what I mean? Like, was it a vehicle to like make something else? I just think it was that. I have read it. I've rated it 5 stars. I've read it like 3 times. I think it's great. I just love the story because I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan. I'm a big like 70s rock band fan. I just really like documentaries about bands. So it gave me that vibe. It's an interview. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Fourth Wing is also a product of its time. Do I think it's genuinely rated at 5 stars? Not because I thought it was a perfect book, but just because I thought it was really fun and I thought it did everything it wanted to do. Every Summer After I think is more like 4 stars. I've looked back on this a few times and I know how much I loved it when I read it, but I even said in my review, I was like, in my heart it's 5 stars, but like if I were to like think about it, I think it's 4 stars. So Malibu Rising is also like probably 4 stars. I was just eating it up. I was eating up everything TJR could feed me, and that has since stopped with Carrie Soto, which I historically DNF'd, but that seeds were planted there. That book was not that good. It wasn't that good. It was okay, but it wasn't that good. Oh my god, Grant is a classic. If you didn't know, my favorite president, Ulysses S. Grant, I love that man. He's so iconic. Like, I read a over 1,000-page book about him, a biography, and like, where in this list does it tell you that I like reading biographies about presidents? Nowhere. That's why he's so great. I love him. Begin Again is solid again. Station 11, I couldn't figure out if I rated this 4 or 5 stars, but I'm putting it in here. I love this book. I think it's a classic. I think it should be studied in schools. Looking for Alaska is a product of its time, but I will never stop loving it. I will never stop thinking about reading that in, what did I say, 7th grade? Somewhere between 7th and 8th grade, I think. I will never stop thinking about that. I decorated my cap inspired by Looking for Alaska, my graduation cap. The X-Hax, again, wait, no, the X-Hax is a product of its time. It's a product of its time because I gave it 5 stars and then I revisionist historied gave it 4 stars because I think I was at a place in my life where I really wanted to experience this. I really wanted to experience like a fun witchy romance. And like, where's my fun witchy romance? Let me ask you. It's not here. But I was 19 when I read it, and I think the main character at the beginning is 19, so I was like, I feel it just hit at the right time. Happily Ever After playlist, I think again was at the right time, right place. I still like Abby Jimenez, but I don't think that's her best book. I should probably reread it. This bottom is like, I should reread it, but like, will I? Library of the Unwritten I think is solid. I think I need to reread it if I want to continue on with the series because it's like a trilogy, but it's got libraries and magic and like things coming out of books and like, it's really fun. I really enjoyed it at the time. For that library, the more I think on it is like a 4 star. I think it's great if you need a little pep talk. And like sometimes we do, and like let's be honest, sometimes we do need a little pep talk for Matt Haig. Is it that deep? No, it's not that deep. So The Name of the Wind is going up here. Can I un momentito? Okay, it's 6 stars. The Name of the Wind is my favorite fantasy series of all time. Where's the 3rd book? I don't know. Perks it's product of the time. I think I will continue to reread it, but I will continue to reread it thinking about the person I was when I read it for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna like be like, oh, this is like adult me thinking about this. No, I'm gonna be like, remember when this like struck such a chord with me, you know? The Road is in fact a classic. I read it in a class. Well, I was supposed to read it in class. I didn't read it for that class. LOL, I did not read it for that class. But I did read it. It's my brother's favorite book, and I think it's a classic. I think it's really fucking sad, but it's really good. Seven Husbands I think is solid. I think it's her best book, and I need to reread it. Fun fact. Starless Sea is 6 stars. This is my favorite standalone fantasy book I've ever read, and I've read it a couple times. I think it's really good. It's got magic, it's got keys, it's got libraries, it's got stories within stories, it's got books within books. It's awesome. Tea Dragon Society. I loved this book for a lot of different reasons. I got my kids that I used to nanny really into this book, and they used to want me to read it to them like every day. I think it's a product of its time. That's what I'm gonna give it. Same with Nevermore. Did I finish that series? No. Do I think about it ever? No. But I do genuinely think it's like the new Harry Potter. I think it's very comparable. The Weight of Blood is so solid. Such a good book. Such a good horror book. Such a good YA horror. Like, while being like a intense like psychological horror, it's also like tackling like systemic racism and stuff like that, and I think it's really good. And it's a Carrie retelling. So. Mistletoe Motive also is a product of its time. Again, I was like reading about a romance with someone on the ace spectrum for the first time, and I just really liked it. So This Time Tomorrow is a really solid book. This Time Tomorrow. I love Emma Straub. You'll see there's a couple Emma Straub books on this list because I just really love her. This Time Tomorrow is her only like magical realism style story. It's about time travel a little bit, but it's mostly about like a father-daughter relationship, and I just think it's really fucking good. Okay, now what do I do with this book? This will be funny someday. I'm just a girl. You know what I mean? I have to reread it. I have to reread it. I don't know if I will because it might trigger me, but we're gonna put it in as a product of its time. I needed to read this at the time that I read this. Going through my healing journey, we have to move on. Tomorrow is a classic. I stand by that. I think it's a great book. So is Trust of the Emerald Sea. I think that's a classic. I think that should be like up there with like some of the classic fantasy books. Okay, Tweet Cute is a solid. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Like what more do you want from me? I love Romeo and Juliet retellings. Like Romeo and Juliet for the digital age with grilled cheese set in New York. What do you like? What more do you want from me? Where the Watermelons Grow is probably more like 4 stars. I don't really remember why I give that 5 stars. We Spread is 6 stars. This is my type of horror. Now we get to know my type of horror, guys. That's my cat. She goes under my blankets. You Deserve Each Other, again, I feel like just like came right time, right place, which I feel like happens with like a lot of like romance books. Like I don't really like, I'm like, oh, this is so good in the moment, but like I genuinely haven't thought about that. Same with The Switch. Like I have not thought about that book since I read it. Yours Truly, I think, is really solid. I think that's a really great romance book. What I talk about when I talk about running is also solid. If you like running and you like writing, I would recommend it, but like if you don't read it. The Immortalist, I think, is a classic. I think it's such a rich story, a tapestry of a family, and it's all kind of like through this magical lens. I forgot about that book. But that book is really good. Same with Writers and Lovers. I kind of forgot about this book, but I remember really enjoying it. Wait, I'm gonna put that in solid because actually I don't. I could tell you like 3 things about this book. I was gonna brag. I was like, I know everything about every book that I've ever read. And I'm learning. I could tell you like a brief synopsis probably, but I probably couldn't go much deeper. This Adventure Ends is probably more like a 4 star. I don't know. Way of Kings is a classic. You Must Not Miss, crazy story. Crazy, wacky, horror adjacent. And then The Prince and the Dressmaker, I think, is a product of its time. So these are my tiers for my 5-star reads. I missed some of them, don't worry about it. I think a lot of my older picks for 5-star reads have not maybe aged as well as I would have thought, but I do think generally like the things that I've given 5 stars in the last 2 or 3 years, I do stand by, especially like my favorite books of the year. Like I make those lists every year, and I still am pretty happy with those books on those lists. That is all for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see me tier rank something else, I tier ranked magic, what is it, Rainbow Magic Fairies once? If you want to see me tier rank something else, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any other video suggestions for me, I would love to hear them. And with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, do all the things, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!